This is the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Now, on the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out to Jesus, saying, "Have mercy on us, Master." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He kneeled before Jesus' feet, and he thanked him. And this man was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this one foreigner?" Then he said to the Samaritan, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. Courage. It takes courage to take a step out in faith and to attempt to do the right thing, recognizing that sometimes our efforts may not be met with much success. I remember years ago when our 2 oldest, Ryan and Lauren, they were 9 and 6. And one night I had hatched in my mind that it would be kind of fun to make pancakes for dinner. Thought it would be kind of a fun thing to do. And so I said to the kids, "I'm going to make pancakes for dinner." And the 9-year-old and the 6-year-old, "Oh, that'll be so wonderful. We love pancakes." And that'd be kind of a fun thing to do. Now, of course, I had never made them before. So imagine yourself, I've talked them into the pancakes. They're all excited about the pancakes. We're going to have pancakes for dinner. And then you just imagine yourself being one of these little kids looking forward to Dad's pancakes. I make the pancakes. They don't look right. They don't look right. And but I put and then the kids, they didn't taste right. I mean, these were the worst pancakes. It's almost like, how can you really screw up a pancake? They're usually at least average to very good. But these pancakes were the worst. They were absolutely the worst. My kids were disappointed, and I know that they and I were somewhat scarred from the experience. And I never made pancakes again for many, many years. And within the urban legends of the Fisher family, the night Dad made pancakes is a horror story that we occasionally refer to. But in any event, I put all this aside. I tried to recover from the experience. The kids did too, when we did certainly over the years eat pancakes. Beth would make the pancakes, not I. And it worked out very fine. But then, like a couple years ago, Joel, the 3rd child, he was home and he's down in the kitchen and he's making some breakfast for himself. So I wander up to Joel and I say, "What you doing?" He says, I'm making myself a pancake. And I look and I say, "That is a mighty fine looking pancake." And he looked at me like, "Yeah, it will be fine." It was like it was not the first pancake he's made. And so I walked away thinking there's a spark of hope that it's not a genetic disorder, that fishermen can't make pancakes, because clearly this one fisherman could make pancakes. So I was encouraged by that. And so I go into my study, I do work, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple months later, I decide, I'm going to make pancakes. I built up the courage after 30 years of fear. I decided I, too, will make pancakes. And so for the last few years, about 5 days a week, I make a pancake for myself. And I got to be honest, by now, I can make a pretty good pancake. I won't wax on about different mixes and stuff. I can tell you about all of them and how they cook and what, blah, blah, blah. But I conquered my fear. And I am now fed with a very special thing. And that the courage that I needed to make that pancake came unwittingly by my son making his breakfast one day. Wouldn't life be so simple if that's all it were? You see, for Jesus, he was always unpacking the question of fear and the fact that courage to do anything is essential to move forward in life. We can get trapped by our fears, by the things we have not done yet, by the things we should do. And we can just become slaves to these fears, and yet we need courage to break through them. Now, last week, Jesus was talking to his disciples as they were entering on the way to Jerusalem, and they were afraid to share the peace, to share the shalom. They had been trained, they knew what to do, but they were struggling to do the right thing. And they say to Jesus, right, they say, "Master, give us more faith." And Jesus looked at them like they had just fallen off a turnip truck and said, "You've got enough faith. You only need the faith of a mustard seed to move mountains. You've already got that. You've got to have the courage to get up, roll up your shirt sleeves, and get out there and proclaim peace. There's no magic to this. You've got the faith." But see, they lacked the courage to take the steps forward. Jesus is always unpacking these types of things with his disciples. They just lacked faith. I'm reminded a couple of weeks ago, you know the story by now. It's been in the media. There was a black man who was sitting in his apartment a year or so ago, eating ice cream, watching probably ESPN Sports Center. He was an accountant by trade. He was just relaxing when all of a sudden his apartment door is broken into. He is startled. He jumps up, and there's a white woman with a gun who happens to be a police officer who murdered him. Okay. A year later, the trial is over. She's convicted, and then she's sentenced to 10 years. The deceased brother, a black man as well, got up and asked the judge if he could hug his brother's murderer. And the judge granted the request. He hugged the murderer. He said, "I forgive you." He said, "I want the best for you. I know there's more in life for you." The brother, with the faith of a mustard seed, immediately moves into shalom, immediately extends mercy, forgiveness, and compassion like that. It has such a profound impact on the judge, also black. And I say these colors, I'm not going to unpack that, but there's a lot of layers to this. But she is so inspired. She comes off the bench. She hugs the murderer. And then she ultimately gives her a Bible. Now the father of the deceased, the beloved, is interviewed. And he was there. And they asked, "Would you agree with your son?" He says, "Absolutely. Forgive her. Absolutely. And want the best for her." He says, "Now, I do think that the 10 years might have been a little light, but that's not her fault. That's another problem." But what we saw was shalom in action, in real time. And it sparked all kinds of debate. It ruffled waters in interesting ways. It inspired some, it upset others. Everything got so confused. Roles were being reversed. But this is shalom in action. This is what it does, you see. And it gets us now to today. Jesus entering a village. 10 lepers. See him as master. They all have enough faith. They have faith the size of a mustard seed. All 10. They're calling upon him for mercy. Shalom, mercy. Master, Lord, have mercy on us. And they're granted a healing. All 10 lepers are healed. One comes back. One comes back and begins the walk of shalom. One came back recognizing his life had been in fact changed and is willing to become a disciple. One. All had faith. 9 chose not to come back. It wasn't that they weren't grateful for getting rid of the leprosy. That's a wonderful thing. It's another thing, though, to take the next step, to share that news with the world. And that's something they were not willing to do. We, as Christians, as people of God, each one of us already has the mustard seed. Each one of us has more faith than we will ever need. It's already there. Each one of us is being called to action. Each one of us, when we stop and we unpack all of the gospel stories, recognize in the end what matters is taking that little bit of faith and moving it out into our world to be agents of God's mercy, compassion, justice, and forgiveness. This is the charge. And the reason we come together is to be reminded, to be reflective, to be filled with the Spirit so that we can go back out into the world and imagine being God's hands and feet. Each one of you can tell stories, wonderful stories of faith. You have more to tell, more opportunities to share God's love with others. Yes, sometimes it is scary. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage. But in the end, what's the worst thing that can happen? So occasionally you burn a few pancakes. Amen.